meeting, you said when reading over financial statements, you identified companies you were virtually certain were frauds. What was it in those financial statements that you saw that made you be so certain they were frauds?
For example, in the insurance field, we've seen some frauds, and you can see things being done with loss reserves occasionally. You would see companies that when they were offering stock to the public, the year or two before that, the reserves would go down very suspiciously, or even when they were selling them to other insurance companies. There's a million different ways, and I don't claim I know all the ways, obviously, but I have seen enough situations over the years, and I've seen how promoters act, and you can spot certain people who are one way or another playing games with the numbers. But I can't give you a checklist of 40 items or something of the sort that you look for in the balance sheet or the income account or the footnotes. Charlie, can you help him anymore?
Sometimes it's pretty obvious. I once was introduced by Warren, of all people, by accident to a man who wanted to sell us a fire insurance company. And among the first things he said with a thick accent from Eastern Europe, I think.
Don't name countries.
And I don't remember the country.
Good.
But what he told me was, he says, it's like taking candy from babies, he said. We only write fire insurance on concrete structures that are underwater. And I figured out instantly that it was probably fraudulent.
The guy's a crook.
I'm a very acute man.
Yeah, the guy's a crook.
A lot of it, they're not being deliberately fraudulent because they're deluded. In other words, they believe what they're saying.
Yeah, people like to hire them as salesmen. If you've got doubts, forget it. It's interesting, the accounting, they've worked harder and harder and harder at coming up with disclosures in accounting. And I'm not sure I find present financial statements more useful, or in some cases as useful as I found them 30 or 40 years ago. I don't know. Charlie? Yeah.
Well, I think the financial statements of big banks are way harder to understand now than they used to be. They just do so many different things, and they've got so many footnotes, and there's so much gobbledygook. They're not my grandfather's banks.
Yeah. We bought a company that in January where they had 23,000 derivative contracts, and Charlie and I could have spent 24 hours a day and had the help of 10 or 20 math PhDs, and we still wouldn't have known what was going on. And it cost us about $400 million to find out.
Once people get in a competitive frenzy, things just go out of control.
I became the interim chairman of interim CEO of Solomon in 1991, and fortunately I had testified to both a House and Senate committee before I found this out. They did come into me one day and they said, Warren, you probably should know that we have this item. I think it was around 180 million or something like that. This is a plug number, and we've been plugging it ever since Vrewro merged with Solomon in 1981. For 10 years, this number moved around every day. And in 10 years, with Arthur Anderson as their accountant paying a lot of money in auditing fees, they just never figured out how the hell to get the thing to balance. So they just stuck a number in every day. And they literally plugged it for 10 years, and I couldn't figure out how to unplug it myself. I mean, you almost had to start over. Didn't they do that one time out there?
We did that.
Yeah, right.
We had a discrepancy when we changed accounting systems in our savings and loan, and none of the accountants could fix it. So we just let it run out.
Yeah, we let the account.
We just let the account run out, and
We start over again.
We started over, right?
Yeah, accounting is not quite the science that people
And
might
in
want
accounting, you can do things like they do in Italy when they have trouble with the mail. You know, it piles up and irritates the postal employees. They just throw away a few carloads, and then everything flows smoothly thereafter.
folks. That happened in some unnamed international country.
Yeah, Italy.